Welcome everyone to AbleNet's University and webinar. Today we are here together and you are in this webinar that we're going to be talking about AAC modeling. And my name is Sharon Redmon, and I am co-presenting this pseudo with Kelly Fonner. Kelly ended up having a conflict in her schedule, and so she's unable to be with us today. However, she did send us some video clips, and we're going to kind of jump right in and listen to Kelly's intro, and then we'll come back. I am going to be sharing my screen, so as we go through this, just know that there's going to be, I ask sometimes for a little grace, because there's always technical issues when you're dealing with AT, right? And whether you're talking about it or whether you're presenting about it, there's always something that happens. So just so you know that that's kind of the flow. So welcome again, and I'm going to start Kelly's quick little video.
Hello, everyone. My name is Kelly Fonner. I'm really excited about this topic on aided language stimulation and presenting here with my new colleague, Sharon Redmon. Unfortunately, I might not be with you live today. I've had to fill in for a colleague for a full-day presentation on AAC at a local school district. And Sharon is more than capable of doing this presentation live. You will be seeing a video from Leslie Scahan and her son Mason, who are one of the families that I'm working with. And you will be seeing them using a pod book. And that's one of the systems that I do training on. And you'll see her modeling with Mason's pod. So we'd like to thank Leslie for allowing this video. You'll be able to see more from Leslie and her son. If you're on Facebook, you can go to Mason's Milestones. Again, I'm Kelly Fonner. I do training and then consultations on AAC and other assistive technologies. You'll find other videos here on Able University, and you can find me at www.kellyfonner.com. Thanks so much for joining us.
All right, so we're really sad that Kelly's not going to be with us, but I'm super excited to be here and sharing this morning on the Pacific Coast here, afternoon where you are, everything in between, but sharing this time together. So I'm going to go ahead and share my desktop. What I'm going to be doing today is presenting a little bit in a different way. I'm using an online cloud-based version called a VisMe, and it's an interactive infographic, if you will. So there's just a few kind of housekeeping things that I wanted to go over before we kind of start our day. So this VisMe project, what I love about it is that I can make updates, and as I go and update, as Kelly and I add more information, this gives you real-time updates. As long as you have this link, which was provided to you in the beginning, you should be able to come in and see this at any time. It will be at the end, it will have email and websites that you can also link to get to these that Kelly and I will put up. So another little kind of housekeeping, that when you go back, if you wanted to go back into this interactive infographic to get information, there's a small little handprint right here with an arrow, little pointer finger. So when you hover over the buttons, the icons, that usually will take you to an outside website, or it will bring up more information. So just kind of that tool to use while we're going through this. So again, my name is Sharon Redmon, and I am, as my background is in special education and assistive technology. I've taught everything from regular ed, kindergarten, to high school, to special ed, early childhood, to transition. I've taught in a virtual environment. I've taught in brick and mortar. And I've also been an assistive technology specialist for districts within Wisconsin and in Washington State. And also when I did a little bit of time teaching overseas. So kind of had a variety of experiences, and really this idea where I keep coming back and where I have such a passion with AAC and assistive technology stems from my first teaching experience, where it was early childhood classroom. I had 3 kiddos that were nonverbal, and I needed a way for them to communicate. And, and I loved my speech and language pathologist, and everything was great, but when she would leave and my kids still needed to communicate, and my kids also then would start having behaviors. And of course, then I needed to find a way. And I remember sneaking into her room and finding this like golden book on the shelf where I swear the light was shining down on it and pointed me the way. And it was a board maker book that I could take to the printer and make copies of. And that's where I started my AAC journey over 20 years ago. And I've had a lot of mistakes, and I've had a lot of successes, and hopefully all of everything that I've done and that Kelly has done over the last 20 or so years of work in the classroom, 25 years, that would kind of comes together in this presentation, and you'll hopefully be able to benefit from that. So we're here today again, aided language, looking at research and moving it into practice. Because what I've found in my practice is that, I talk about this, I give this presentation, I train my EAs or paraeducators, teachers, parents, and when then it just comes to then implementing, things get lost. And I really struggled with this, but really tried to figure out why, what is happening? Why is this so hard? It seems so easy to model and point to a picture, but what are the barriers? Why is this? Why are we having such a hard time with this? So that's really was the impetus. That was a problem for me that I'm on a mission to solve and try to come up with solutions on how to, go from this best practice that we know and move it into an area of true implementation and true use. So today we're going to just kind of start out with a little bit of understanding and background knowledge and research about this. So we're talking about aided language stimulation or aided language input or aided language modeling or partner assisted. So there's lots of different words that kind of mean all the same thing. This whole idea of aided language stimulation is that process of modeling AAC language in everyday settings. So as we go through AAC and where we're hoping that you will take away today is that through this VISME and through this presentation and interactive infographic, that you're going to walk away with 2 really solid examples. We have more research than just 2, but that will be in here that you'll be able to have. Really want you to, and this is the core of today, is to walk away with one activity, one solid thing that you can do to implement and start moving either within your classroom, within your own practice, helping parents, helping AAC, any partners that are working with an AAC communicator, be able to really implement this and actually do it. And then also have the internet resources, and this VISME it's littered with resources for you, and Kelly, Fonner, and I are adding them constantly and updating this. That's what I love about this type of interactive of slide presentation. So AAC, we want to have some common language and some understanding. And we know the what. We know that AAC is a set of tools and strategies that we use to solve everyday communication challenges. And what I've done is I've also added these icons, and these will really kind of as we go through this infographic, really kind of trigger you to like, oh, this is what a piece of what information you need that talks about what AAC is. This infographic or this icon of the why, like, and the research, so what aided language and how it's defined. The who and the communicator. So any person who requires this AAC or alternative method to communicate, which is a basic human right. And we will talk a little bit about the Communication Bill of Rights as well, coming up in a little bit. So the who is this? Who are we kind of really talking about? I mean, we have the AAC communicator, but you have the AAC supportive partner. So that any communication partner supporting the use and learning of AAC is the AAC communicator. That's really what this is for. That's where we see these barriers. The AAC communicator wants to communicate using their AAC. They may not know how to, and so this is how we teach them. This is aided language stimulation is a major part of, I feel, and I would say, speak for Kelly, she feels that as well, that this is a very integral part in learning this AAC language. The when, which is AAC modeling, we know that that can be in the home, community, school, pretty much everywhere, pretty much any place that you want to communicate, that's the when and the where, right? And that how is the aided language stimulation modeling. So it really sounds easy to do, but I can't tell you, and I'm sure in your own practice, if you think about it in your schools and settings that you work in, that you see this as well, that the implementation is just, it's not there, and why is that? What and how can we go about that? So before we get into all that information and fun stuff, I want to just really kind of let's first agree and understand, again, this building of common and shared language and knowledge. So I can presume your competence, and I do, as I presume competence with all individuals. However, I may not presume the knowledge that you have. And so I want to make sure that we are really all on the same page as we go forward. So if any of you have seen this by Kate Ahern, this is her infographic that she did, the Communication Bill of Rights. I strongly encourage you to go and see her if you get to a national conference or have the ability to watch one of her webinars. So she's quite funny, and she really brings some really good information and research out to the community. So really, this Communication Bill of Rights, my dear friend, Mike Keppel, who is an AAC communicator, this is his passion, and he's asked me to really kind of always make sure that when I'm doing a webinar about AAC or a presentation or talk with anyone, that I really kind of bring this up and bring this in the forefront. And hopefully you've all seen this, that AAC communicators, they have the right, to have their own friends and social life. They have the right to ask who and what and where and why. They always have the right to say no. They have the right to say what they feel. They have the right to make their own real choices, not choices that individuals around them give them, but their own choices. And we'll talk about that agency, of AAC agency, that really goes into this AAC Communication Bill of Rights. AAC communicators, like everyone, they have the right to say what they think. They have the right to ask and get permission. They have the right to know about people in their life and things that are happening to them. They have the right to be taught to communicate and have what they need. They have the right to have their systems and have people who know how to use their systems to fix them and teach them. And they have the right to be heard and answered. And even if they can't have what they want, they still have that right. They have a right to be part of the community. They have a right to be treated with respect, and they have the right to be talked to and not about. And they have the right to be talked with in a way that they understand. And that last bit about in a way they understand, that also speaks to this learning of language and this being immersed in a language that they're learning. So being immersed in AAC language is all what we're here today talking about of aided language stimulation and modeling, is immersing our AAC communicators in this language, in this preferred and or needed mode of communication. So before we get on a little bit further, so this, I talked a little bit about that while I was reading those Communication Bill of Rights, which, feel are really, really important, but that presuming potential or presuming that competence. And I truly believe that we need to presume competence, but that doesn't mean that we presume that everyone knows, that they have the knowledge. So just because you don't know how doesn't mean you can't know how. And we'll just keep saying it until everyone agrees and not only just believes it and just talks about it, but actually implements it into their practice. So believing that a person has potential means that we are providing aided language stimulation and modeling opportunities every day, all day. And so how can we start that process? Well, let's look a little bit further into what that is. And so we have aided and unaided communication. And so this comes from, I took this from Asha and from Isaac, so, and USAC. We have many SLPs with us in assistive technology and practitioners as well, and that you're familiar with those two areas. So I will have these linked as well, though, for you so that you can make sure that you can get to. They're not linked right now, but it just triggered my memory that maybe I should link that to Asha and USAC and Isaac so that you have those quick links to go to. So we have unaided communication, this idea that communication can happen without the aids of anything. So that the person fully is in control of that vocalization, those facial expressions, sign language gestures, that it comes from that person and making those. There's unaided. Where aided communication are letters, words, speech-generating devices and apps that are on iPads, single message SGDs, and also pictures and symbols. So that those are aided forms of helping people communicate. When we're working with AAC, and this is, I think, something we're starting to really understand within the research, is that we need to understand this idea of multimodalities and being able to not just understand that there are multimodal ways of communicating, but accepting those multi-modes of communication. So not just understanding that they're there, but accepting. And, and I'm first to admit I have been in a position where I've been working with kids and teaching AAC, and I want them to use their device so much, and that I forget about this idea of multimodal and I've forgotten about this idea of really honoring the communication. Because really we need to kind of think about when we're working with our individuals in assistive technologies, not to forget about that HAT model, right? That human activity and then the attack and then the assistive technology. So humans first, activity next, and then the technology and how we get there. So really understanding that this communication, it takes two, and it is a relationship. And that communication and that relationship comes first. Working and interacting in schools with individuals, teaching them, we all know that forming that relationship is paramount. And that should be honored. And when we don't accept this multimodal way of communicating, then we're destroying that relationship. And I think that's just a really important piece that we need to remember. We need to remember that, that with using and honoring this multimodal way of communicating is, and why it's so important is that, and I'm sure we've all been there at the snack table, and that we have snack, or we're at our kiddo needs to use the restroom, right? These are the two, it seems to be, most important areas that people end up starting with. I don't believe that it is the most important area. I think that there are others, and hopefully we'll learn about those. You'll take some of those, we will learn about them, but you'll take some of those away today, is really understanding that if they point, if a child has facial expression and vocalizes and uses their body language to say that they need to go to the bathroom, and then we say, well, you need to tell us on your talker, show me on your talker first, that is not honoring and not giving the AAC communicator their agency. We just took that away from them. They told us we need to hear them and listen and honor that mode. But then what we can do, and we'll talk about this again later, is what we can do is we can say, oh, it looks like you need to go to the bathroom. You know what? Here's another way you can say that. But yeah, let's go. As we're on our way, let me show you how that looks. I can use your talker, or I can use symbols, or I can do this. These are other ways. But not honoring that mode that they preferred in that moment, that is not allowing for that agency. And I think we really kind of need to make sure that we're looking at that HAP model where we're really understanding that it's that human first is a relationship, and then it goes on into the technology. All right, so I feel like we have, I'm just going to check in really quick and see if there are any questions about, I'm sorry if I'm making you dizzy, any questions about that kind of common language or things that we're working on?
I don't have any questions right now, Sharon, but Brittany said that she was very glad to hear about this, so she's loving the presentation.
Great. Oh, thanks, Brittany. It's kind of hard when you're doing a webinar and you don't. I get a lot of feedback when I do presentations, and body language and those pieces of that multimodal communication piece are really important to me. So it takes some getting used to be able to be just on this side and not get any response from the group, from the team. So thank you. I appreciate that. Okay, so we're going through into the why. And this is kind of, it's also one of the barriers that I found when kind of working and trying to figure out like what's going on, why are we not implementing this? It's so easy, point to a picture and speak. So why is this not happening? And really what I found is that and we'll talk about this, it's not a problem. It's not a problem for some of the people that are working with our AAC communicators. And if it's not becoming a problem and there's no urgency, then we're not having solutions, or we're not then implementing to fidelity and what we need to do. So why? So what is this problem? So I love this Jane Corson quote, and I'm sure many of you have seen this, but the average 18-month-old has been exposed to over 4,000 hours of oral language at a rate of 8 hours a day from birth. So a child that communicates and has a communication system and receives just speech and language therapy with hopefully maybe they're doing aided language during that time and modeling for 20 to 30 minutes, it will take them for the same amount of language exposure 84 years. Our kids don't have time to wait. They don't have time to wait 84 years in order to be exposed and immersed in their language. It's not okay. This should be the urgency. There was another study that was just recently done, and it's linked here, and a comparison of AAC modeling to verbal language, modeling to average 3-year-olds in 1 week. And when I showed this graphic and took the data that was in this research study and put it into this graphic to a mom that I work with who has 2 boys that are on the spectrum, nonverbal, and use AAC to communicate, she was flabbergasted. She knew that this was a problem, but really coming out and looking at it in this graph, this causes the urgency. This is the problem. This is why we need to be doing aided language stimulation every day in multiple settings, in multiple ways. And we need to break down the barriers and figure out a way to be able to do this. So in 1 week, we have over 125,000 words spoken to an average 3-year-old, modeled words. And in 1 week, we have, and this is an average. This was the average. I didn't even take the top most, the average, 2,400 words modeled. Can you even imagine how great it would be to model 2,400 words, have your AAC communicator have that modeled. And imagine what is happening now and just getting up to that, and even getting to that point of 2,400 words modeled in a week, we're still well below what the spoken language is modeled and how intensive and immersive that is. So we need to do better. That this is where we're at. This is the problem. This is the why. And the urgency and the agency that we need to solve this problem is real. And there's no debating, there's no misunderstanding. It's a real issue. So we know it's best practice. So why are there barriers blocking the modeling in our perceptions and knowledge? And so what I did is I went out and I was on a mission to find out what this was. Why is this not working? Why can I train all of the people that I know and work with, and I'm still not seeing it implemented? And so I just started asking the question, and, you know, I would suggest you do the same. And these are some of the things that I got, that it makes them feel silly, it makes them feel stupid, that it's so slow. They don't know where the words are. The words they want are never there. It takes too long to find the words. Or, and this is a big one, of the perception, that is the barrier, that the AAC user is not paying attention, so why bother? So why? They're not looking at the board. They're not paying attention to it, so why should I immerse them in this language? Because all these other things are just so difficult. So my dear friend, Davina Penny, she's speech and language pathologist, and we had worked together. That really, it was also what we were implementing as a staff, and what we were giving them was too overwhelming for them. So that was a barrier. I was asking it to do too much too soon, and that was a barrier. And so once we changed our mindset, and once we changed our approach, you know, that's when we became a team full of successful AAC users. Something I feel in this slide and the quotes that are the biggest for me is Megan, who's an AAC communicator mom, and I spoke about her earlier, is that she really didn't get the point. You know, she said, she's like, they could hear me, they understood me, so their ears work just fine. Why would I need to point to pictures to show them? She said, so she really had to adjust her thinking to understanding how they learn the process of language, and to the fact that it was giving them extra exposure to their words so I could talk at the same time. That was a huge shift in her perception that made all the difference within her home when she started really accepting and modeling. And this took, Megan and I had worked for years talking about this before she was really able to kind of see and make that adjustment. She also said that the hardest part was just starting. So that once you start, it becomes second nature, but really just starting, just doing. We know we're going to make mistakes. We know we're not going to do it right away. That's okay. So giving yourself and giving your parents and your teachers and people that need to be that AAC communication partner, the acknowledgement and the ability to say it's okay if we screw up, because we do all the time. We're only human, and communication is messy, and it's okay to do that. So I felt like really that understanding that it wasn't really so much material or physical things that were getting in the way of AAC communication, it was more of the perceptions that people had, the difficulties that were more of the barriers. And so how could we go about making sure that those barriers are taken care of? So kind of keep those in the back of your mind. We're going to be talking about this communication triangle, and I'm gonna come back out, and Kelly Fonner has some thoughts and some words that she'd like to share with you. So give me some grace here, and we'll see if we can get to, hope I'm not making you sick. There we go. So loading the video. So let's listen to Kelly and what she has to say.
we want to talk to you about the why behind aided language stimulation. Of course, the first reason is this. If you want kids to use a communication system and see that as their language, what I tell my teams is if you want to have a symbol talker, you need to be a symbol talker too. It's just as simple as that. They need to be surrounded by people who talk their language. Just as children to grow up learning to speak the language of those in their community speak, that's what we're looking in this idea of the communication triangle. The communication triangle is that idea of connecting the who, the what we're talking about, and how that message is communicated. The communication triangle has its origins way back to Aristotle, and you'll see if you do a search on the internet, many different versions of the communication triangle. It'll show up in areas when we teach writing, when we teach public speaking. So you'll just see where it's come from very quickly there as some ideas. But when we talk about it here with AAC, it's that moment when you and the communication partner have the what, that topic. That topic is set, and how do we talk about that topic? Sometimes it's done with spoken word, sometimes it's done with sign language, sometimes it's done with symbols. And a child, through your modeling without expectation, that aided language stimulation is what is connecting the topic, the partners, and the how. That this communication board, whether it's words, letters, symbols, whatever it may be, that's how you and I talk together. That's how I know what you are trying to tell me. And by that constant talking with the communication board, the book, the AAC app or system, that's the triangle that we're constantly getting to get through to a child. This is what I need to understand what you are thinking about and what you're trying to tell me. So think about that communication triangle and constantly connecting it through the symbol system that you are using.
All right. So this, what she was going to say at the end was that symbol system that you are using. So, you know, I love listening to Kate Ahern, and when she talks about, you know, that it doesn't matter, you know, we are AAC agnostic. So it doesn't matter which AAC system you're using. That's the brilliance about AAC modeling, is that it can be with any system that you use. So before we keep going and I get into the meat of what we're here and kind of what Kelly's talking about with this AAC in communication triangle and making, and I love it when she talks about if you want to have a symbol talker, you need to be a symbol talker too. And I love that. So really bringing in and getting rid of all of those perceptions and barriers that were there. So I'm just going to, so before we go and move on to that, there's been a few questions. So Kylie, it looks like, yeah, go ahead, please. You should have the infographic URL code that was sent to you. Please share this, and anyone that's part of this is this is free for you to utilize. Kelly and I just ask that you just reference us and you make sure that any information you take from the infographic is just referenced back to us. So, but yes, please share with your staff. Use this in training. I was just in a training a little while ago, and now it's just eluding me who I was talking with or who was there. But they really talked a lot about, like, let me think of who it was. I think it was Carol Zangini was talking. She's like, don't, use other people's stuff. Don't think you have to reinvent the wheel. Just give people credit. Just use their stuff. So please go and absolutely use ours, Kelly, and use that to educate your staff. And also, and I should have said this in the beginning, if there are areas that you feel need to be updated or you would like to add information to make this a really useful tool, this interactive infographic that we have, please send us that information. We'd be happy to vet that out and add links and add that to that. So just, go ahead. It's a community effort, right? We want to make sure that everybody gets out the information. Okay, so Terry had a question. So Terry had a question, since not all words and sentences are being modeled, the AAC users are also talking in incomplete sentences. When assessed, they are now testing as a very immature student, so what can we do? That's a tough question. There are levels. If you've done the communication matrix and talk about the different areas and levels of AAC communicators, and whether they're emergent communicator or throughout that that line of communication, and spacing the names right now. But I think it's really important to know that in the beginning it can't be a barrier. So it just can't. We can't have it as a barrier because we don't have all the words on the communication system. There's very few systems out there, really, unless you are spelling words out yourself, that give you all of the words in the English language. We can get pretty close. We're doing much better than we used to, but it is an understanding, I feel, that we have to make sure that we don't use that as a barrier. So what can you do? I think that you go through and we teach and we use and we move kids up, like even, Kelly and Linda Burkhart, where they talk about where they start in pods, with the pod training, that you start with lower pod numbers of 20 or even lower than that, and you build up to more robust system, that you really, it's just important to take people through those steps and through those learning steps. And, I'll see if Kelly can maybe even have a better answer for you from that, but I just see it as I definitely don't want to see it as a barrier. Okay, so let's see, modeling of incomplete sentences. It's also affecting their writing of incomplete telegraphic sentences using AAC users only verbal. Yeah. So let me get back to you, and let me kind of think about that and see if I can answer that at the end. So we'll kind of go through that. All right. So we have handouts. Okay, so we are going to keep going on. So Terry, I'm going to try to get back with you on those questions, but in the name of time, I want to make sure we get through everything here. So I'm going to share my screen again, and we have another 20 minutes with each other. So we're going to get through, which is great. So I do want to talk about this, Kelly talked about that AAC triangle and making sure we hit on the communication functions. I think when you are new to AAC and new to modeling, that this is a huge piece. Providing AAC agency and understanding that when we bring in AAC modeling to individuals or teaching to kids, that it is not that we always have to have it pulled out of the closet, set up at the table, only for snacks, we give, meals or cookie, which aren't even choices at all to an individual, that is not the only way and area that we need to set up for modeling opportunities. Throughout the day, just walk through your own building or your home and don't talk, just use the device and see what type of opportunities you can come up with in different areas that you would want to have a conversation about, or you would want to ask a question, or you would want to inform or protest or greetings or describe. It's not just about getting our wants, it's about communicating. So directing others, I love that, but it's giving agency, giving that AAC agency to AAC communicators, honoring your forms of communication. And if you're honoring forms of communication, it means that you're honoring communication functions. And it's really important to have that idea in the back of your mind while you're going through this, and especially while we're going through some solutions. The solutions page, we're finally here. So I broke this down into 4 areas. So we're going to look at this environment and tools. So we know with an AAC system having robust communication. If you want to know what a robust communication system is, I suggest, I've talked about her a lot, but Kate has some really great information about that. But really we know it is a mixture of having core words, words that we use frequently that make up 80% of our language in some estimates, to fringe, which fringe is important because that's what we want to talk about, right? We can't have one or the other. We need to find this idea, this approach of I call it a balanced AAC approach, right? So making sure we have a robust communication system so that we do have to have some of these tools set up and ready to go in order to model. It's really, most people are finding it way easier to model AAC language if they have their partner communication system. So it may mean a second iPad with the app on. It may mean printing out the vocabulary that's in their system. If you're using LAMP and use the PASS system, to be able to print that out. All the different systems have a printable feature to them. So having a low-tech version, which you're going to want anyway, right? We know this, that systems break down, batteries die, tech always has a problem. So having a low-tech system ready to go. Knowing your operational competencies, and we'll talk a little bit about that after this, but really understanding being able to carry it around, making sure that you have it, that you don't put it on, that you can increase the volume, all of those competencies of just operating the AAC system. So carry partner systems around, making sure you create a backup we talked about, and something that I'm really passionate about, and I've had lots of discussion, and I know there's a lot of different opinions out there, but using an AAC word wall. When you're talking about a core board and you show that core board to a kindergarten teacher that has never been exposed to AAC, the first thing that they're going to say is that those words are sight words. And they are. And so they're put in a very structured way in order to utilize those core words. But having that word wall is just not for, if you think about it, it's more of a UDL type of structure in a classroom or in a home. It's for everyone to use and everyone to be able to learn those words, just not the AAC communicator. And what does the word wall then give you? It gives you, the AAC communicator then gets to see their peers and other people interacting with a system that looks similar to theirs. And it breaks down a whole host of barriers that are up, that we're not even talking about when it comes to AAC. So how beautiful is that if you provide an opportunity for an AAC communicator in their classroom or in their home environment or in the community to be able to see their neurotypical friend that comes up and has verbal speech and starts using it too, and then is learning alongside of them and is learning how to utilize and speak AAC. I think that is an amazing, and I would love to see that in every space out there, home, community, and school environments. And I think that that's a really important piece when you're setting up the environment, to really be a proactive member in creating opportunities for aided language stimulation. Engineering that classroom environment, right? When I read that book from Caroline Musselwhite back in the 90s, I thought I had died and gone to heaven. Engineering the classroom environment is still as important today as it was back in the 90s. So, okay, going on to visual supports. I am a very big proponent of visual supports. AAC visual supports are huge. We don't just need them for individuals and our students and our AAC communicators. We need them for the partners. We need them for the parents. We need them for the teachers. We need them for the administrators in the building. AAC supports and visual supports are there because we have 1,000,001 things to do in a day, and having that visual support and utilizing the real estate on a wall in your school and utilizing the prime real estate, right, is really important because it triggers us to say, okay, that's right. I need to model, and this is how I need to do it, right? It gives us that opportunity. I like to compare AAC visuals and just visual supports in general to like stop signs. Like if you've lived I have a friend who's lived in my community her whole life, and she's close to 90 years old, and she's still driving. She knows where those stop signs are. She knows that they have been there for her whole life. I am very glad that they're still there as a reminder to everyone to stop, right? We use visual supports every single day. So let's capitalize on that, and let's use these for everyone, especially for AAC and AAC modeling. So creating, I use, and I'm happy to share this, is think, point, say. I feel like bringing things down to a directions of 3 are really important. You think about what you want to say, you point to the word that you're saying, and then you speak the word. And when I utilize this strategy with individuals, with paras and teachers and admin in my schools, I got the support was overwhelming, and they're like, oh, well, why didn't you say that? I thought I had been, but when I brought it down to 3 really distinct points, think, point, say, and I put that up all over the school, it was a quick visual reminder of what they needed to do. Any questions?
Sharon, I have one question. Pam is asking, what was the name of the book again that you had talked about a little bit ago?
Oh, Engineering the Classroom Environment by Caroline Musselwhite. I think I have it in paperback form. I think you can still get it. I'm not sure who. I don't have it with me today because I'm not in my home office. So, but I can get that link and make sure I get that to AbleNet and post that so that you have that. But Engineering the Classroom Environment, I think it has a little bit longer titles and that. That's by Caroline Musselwhite. Anything by Linda Burkhart, who is Patty King-DeBaum, all of those people that really kind of pioneered this idea of AAC and in communication in the classroom, and looking at aided language stimulation, as Caroline Musselwhite, kind of feels like I think she's the originator of that specific term. So, okay. I may be wrong, and so I'm sure that we'll get some comments if that's the case. So that's okay. All right, so really displaying what we use is using those AAC sentence starters and paths. This may be something that Terry was talking about, like what can you do? Well, you can create these paths to be able to make the grammatically correct sentence and put that up in the different areas in your environment that are contextual, that make sense for it to be there. Use the find option. When I work with teachers and speech and language therapists, when we're teaching them how to use AAC, and it's the first thing I show people how to use. Cough Drop has it, LAMP has they all have a find feature. Use that, teach that competency, because that broke down a lot of barriers of I can't find the word, so I can't model. Well, now you know how to find the word, and yes, you can model. And that's great. And I use a lot of metacognitive talking when we do that. Okay, so I'm going to keep going. I talked about balance, AAC, fringe, core of the week. We could go, a whole day about that. This idea of s'mores, we have this link down below in this, and the s'mores is something that is new to me, and I find it was interesting that when Kelly brought it up, because it was everything that I had put on this slide just kind of packaged in a really nice, neat infographic, if you will. But it's really looking at this idea of bringing an AAC visual support for the communication partner so that they know it's taking think, point, say, and putting it in and giving a background to it and giving more teeth to it. So the S is for slow rate. Make sure you're clear and clean and slow while we're talking. The M and O, that modeling. So point while you're doing self and parallel talk, that metacognitive talking. Boy, I don't know where run is. I'm going to go to here, I'm going to get run, and then I want to say I'm thinking about running. So I want to talk about running on the playground. So how can I do that? Having that metacognitive talk where you're describing what you're doing and also that parallel talk is very important. Respect and reflect. So again, respecting all forms of communication, aided or unaided, and then using that as an opportunity to model. I gave that as an example earlier. They want to go to the bathroom and they have all the body language telling you, and then we stop and say, nope, you can't go, you have to use a talker. What are we doing? That's crazy talk. We shouldn't be doing that. What we should be doing is saying, oh yeah, you're telling me that you need to go to the bathroom. I hear you, but let me show you another way to do that. And this is how we go about that. Repeat, frequent repeated utterances, giving lots of practice. The E is expand, so now we're going to repeat, rephrase, build, and this is this area, Sherry, where, building from a single word, adding it up, where maybe we're playing with bubbles and we go from bubble to, that's the big bubble, where we can expand that language. And when we show how we get there from a one-word, two-word utterance to a sentence that's grammatically correct. Stopping, pausing, allowing the child to breathe, count to 10. It's the hardest thing to do, especially for us people who want to explain it all the time. Stop and give them 10. Our kids need to process. They need time to process that language. You start talking again within that 10-second frame, you're resetting them back again, and the whole process can go around and around. So stopping and pausing, taking a breath, and giving them time to reflect and time to then respond and go through that is huge importance. And then again, just starting, right? So those are the s'mores, and that's linked below. We'll take you to the site, to Practical AAC, where then that is there. And that was, let me see here, I forgot to tell you, that partner augmented input was, that s'mores was developed by Dr. Jill Fonner and Matthew Boyd, and they talk in extensive in the Practical AAC and talk about that, which is really great. And I really encourage you to go out and to utilize that. So between think, point, say, and s'mores, I'm sure there's lots of other things that are out there, but this is a start because that's where we need to go. And to just start. Give yourself permission to make mistakes. It's okay. It's okay, but if we don't start, we'll never get there. So the activities, right? Finding meaningful, motivating activities and experiences in context. So did you have a question? Was there a question up there?
Yes. Lisa is wondering if you can say what s'mores stands for and who created it.
Oh, okay. So I had gone over that right at the end. So s'mores stands for slow rate, model, respect, reflect, repeat, expand, and stop or pause. And it was created, put together by Dr. Jill Senner, SENNER, and Matthew Boyd, where they talk about partner augmented input or aided language stimulation, another way to phrase that. And we have it linked, linked at the bottom of this infographic, but you could also just do a quick Google search and get there, and it's on the Practical AAC website. Okay. So I have about 4 minutes to get through 2 more sections, and we can do it. So the talking part, giving control of AAC communicators. We've talked about honoring, communication functions, slow down, metacognitive talk, all within this context, all within the what, that idea of that triangle. Everything that we are talking about, you know, bringing these pieces in. And then over to small steps. So again, what part of SMORE is so that extend and expand. Some of the mindset changing that we did in the classroom that we felt really made our team as a cohesive and robust AAC partners and communicators was that we would choose it and use it. So we would start with one, start slow. We wanted to start with 1 word and 3 functions and in a day. So that's where we started, with 1 word, that 1 core, and we put that up everywhere, and 3 different functions. So we made sure it was in 3 different environments within the school day, and then listed the function that it could be, gave a phrase that it could be put in. And that really started this starting of using it, right? And gave the path as to how to get there so we could find the words. We also did where we flipped this goal. So instead of having the goal, you know, we have our IEP goals. Of course, we're not going to get rid of those, but building that communication partner success. So we created these goals for our EAs and for our staff and for ourselves, really, that we were going to, what was the marker of our success for that week or for that day. So if we were able to model 1 word, and that's where we started. I love how Linda Burkhart talks about in her pod training, where she's like, don't go past the first page. For the first week, just do the first page. Don't go through the pragmatic links. Just stay to the first page. And at first I was kind of like, but I want to get there. But really, it's so important to really understand, know, and get that motor memory of where things are on that first page. Know where that 1 word is and use that. So choose it and use it. If you need to start with fringe, you can start with a fringe word, but choose it and use it. Get that activities, get that meaningful, robust communication going on. One of the things that Megan talked a lot about is that she task analyzes these steps and she breaks them down into small, usable chunks. And that's what we did for our staff as well, and that was huge. We didn't ask them to do it all at once. I made that mistake, and it doesn't work. Just point to everything you're saying for the next hour. It didn't work. It crashed and burned. So really starting with this choose it and use it, this give me 3 idea. I also would set up quick little videos of modeling so that my staff would be able to quickly see in that context, you know, how to do it and how they could bring it into gym, or how they could bring it in when they're walking and doing a field trip, that type of thing. So I used a lot of QR codes and link, and so with their phone, they could quick bring up my private YouTube channel, and they were able to watch that really easily. So give yourself permission to make mistakes. It's really important. And then modeling those competencies. That's where we start, just starting. So when you go through the rest of the infographic, I'm not going to go through this, but just so you know that, you know, we do have these competencies from Janice Light. They're really important. Listed them here, and there's a link to her information and her competencies. Will also help you kind of expand and extend and expand once you get started with AAC modeling. So I want to thank everyone for coming. Here are resources and references that you have access So my name is Sharon Redmon, and I'm an assistive technology specialist and with an ATP, and did this in combination with Kelly Fonner. She was really, really sad not to be here with us today. And I just wanted to send out a special thanks to my Watering group, which is the Wisconsin Assistive Technology Regional Network group, my speech and language and moms that are out there. We've listed all of the resources that we have, and we'll continue to add that. So thank you for attending and this webinar and through AbleNet University, and check back. There are tons more, and this will also be recorded. And I'm willing to hang out. I want to honor your time, but if anybody has some questions and that I didn't answer or would like me to answer, I'm happy to go back over those. So I can stay on and do that. Thanks for attending, everyone.
We do have a few questions, Sharon.
Okay, yeah, I'm back in, so let's see. Oh, yeah, I wanted to show the video, but I am having a hard time finding it, and it didn't get sent to AbleNet, so.
If you send it to me, Sharon, I will include it in the recording.
Oh, okay,
perfect.
Oh,
I can edit the recording.
Okay, so everyone that's here, sorry we didn't get that recording, it was a mix-up. So we'll make sure that we get that in there, and it will be added on to the end of this recording. So thank you. Sorry, I was really excited to show that, but I know that if I show it through my computer, that through ReadyTalk, you wouldn't be able to hear it, and it would just be very frustrating. So, so we'll make sure that gets up there. So great. Are there any other videos, resources out there for pod training? Kelly and I will add some more. There are some other resources that we included in the infographic that you can go to, but we'll make sure that we add some more as we go. So you can also, if, you know, We Speak Pod, I'm spacing the mom's name, Jane. Anyway, you can look on her website and Facebook page. There's lots of video modeling. You can also go to Mason's Milestones on Facebook, and Leslie Sacken, which is Mason's mom, has lots of pod modeling that she does on there, and shows you kind of the journey that they have taken together with podding. I just spoonerized that with modeling of pod. I'm going to have to let Kelly know that one. That can be a new term that she can coin, of podding. So, okay. Any other questions here? Let's see here. I just wanted to make sure that I went back and I felt that, let's see here, emergent literacy, that not Keely, but it was Terry had her questions answered. So she's looking at, and I'm just going to take this information down. I'm hoping we can print out the questions, because then I'd be able to add that information in later too. Kelly and I are going to need to talk a little bit about that. So especially that bridge.
Yes, I can export the chat and get that to you, Sharon.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, because I really want to make sure that I get that answered for you. So that bridge between modeling and the telegraphic sentences, which a student is proficient at. So definitely get more resources that I can send your way. So I have plenty, just not off the tip of my tongue right now. So let's see here. Someone had suggested the Emergent Literacy Cross Merging Technology and Whole Language for Students with Disabilities with Musselwhite and DeBaum in '97. That was one of the books that I had, but it was Engineering the Classroom Environment was the title. And I wish I would have grabbed it with me. And I am pretty sure that it was, I think it was Crane, Musselwhite, and DeBaum, but I'm not really sure. I'd have to go back and look at that. Let's see here. Okay. Let's see here, especially complex needs communicators. Stephen asked a question. Oh, okay, for that, yes. Okay, so I think I answered that, Stephen, for you, the different, and Matt, Mason is a complex communicator, so you definitely would, you'll see quite a bit of great modeling that Mom has done, that Leslie has done. So any other questions? I really appreciate your time today. You were a great group, and I love doing the presenting and these webinars, and so I appreciate your time.